Lying about molest. Preventing and responding to false accusations of sex crimes. Lesson 2. Know when to be on your guard. In Lesson 1 of this series, I talked briefly about my own experience being falsely accused of molest. I also talked briefly about the laws involved. And I also talked about the possible dangers, the possible consequences of being falsely accused of molest. For one, you're almost certainly going to be arrested. You could be detained for up to 48 hours. After that, you have to regularly report for bail. Your passport could be impounded, and you'll be prohibited from leaving the country. Your career could be put on hold, damaged, or destroyed. Your family life could face severe stress. You would end up paying huge sums in legal fees. As I said, in the case of Dr. Yoso Nam, he paid $600,000 in legal fees over 4 years. That's enough to buy a HDB flat. And of course, you face up to 3 years in jail, a fine, and caning. Now, given that all these possible dangers are very severe, you do not actually need to be paranoid all the time. You do not need to be suspicious of every woman. You just only need to know when to be on your guard. And that is what I'm going to teach you in this lesson. So, what is the most famous Chinese saying in the whole world? People from many countries know this saying. The saying is 知己知彼，百战百胜. In other words, it means that if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you win 100 out of 100 battles. The point of this lesson is to help you to know your enemy. Now, there are many links for further reading. They are all provided at my blog, shunketsu.wordpress.com, Lying About Molest, Lesson 2. Now, first, I'm going to talk about what are the immediate triggers of false accusations. This will give you the when. My purpose here is not to give you definitions, but to help you recognize danger signs. So I'm going to show you some examples of the immediate triggers of false accusations. The links for all these examples are, as I said, provided on my blog. So the first trigger, emotional meltdown. In the case of Ms. Lovedeep Kaur, she found herself caught in a very ugly confrontation between her landlord and his wife. So because of that, Ms. Kaur called the police, and when the police officers arrived at the scene, she told them that before Mrs. Singh, the wife of the landlord, got home, Mr. Singh had molested her. In light of the allegations, a senior investigation officer went to the flat to interview them at about 11 p.m. Now, during the interview, Lovedeep claimed, do I really need to read out all the rest of it? It reads to me like what I expect the script of a porn movie to be like. And since I myself was falsely accused of molest, I realized that somewhere in the database of the Singapore Police Force, there could be a porn movie script written about me, with me as the main star. What a disgusting thought. Anyway, the main point, however, I want you to get from this case is to see that Mr. Singh was arrested and taken down to Tanglin Police Division headquarters. He was released only the following afternoon after assisting in investigations. Bear in mind, he was arrested solely on the word of Ms. Lovedeep Kaur alone. She had no proof, she had no evidence to offer the police. But because outrage of modesty is an arrestable offense, the police do not need to get a warrant of arrest before they arrest whoever's been accused. So recognize this danger that if you are accused of outrage of modesty, you could be arrested immediately. I'll talk more about this in lesson 4 when I'm talking about how to interact with the police, how to talk with the police when you're accused. Now, the bad news about this trigger, emotional meltdown. The bad news is this can happen to anyone. The good news is there is a lot you can do to prevent this. Just don't push women to the point they have an emotional meltdown. Or if they are moving towards that point, you can usually see it coming and prepare. The next trigger, to cover for mistakes. For this, we look at the case of Dr. Yo So Nam. On the 27th of September in 2017, at a business dinner with the accuser and her colleague, Dr. Yo asked the accuser for dilution ratios and medical literature for a product the accuser wished to have him purchase from the company she represented as a salesperson. On 28th of September, the accuser missed the meeting she had arranged with Dr. Yo. On the 9th of October, the accuser met with Dr. Yo but failed to bring him the promised medical literature. She was berated severely as a result. On the 12th of October 2017, the accuser made a police report against Dr. Yo. She accused Dr. Yo of molesting her on 9th of October. So, with these dates before us, it's easy to infer that the accuser accused Dr. Yo of outraging her modesty as a cover-up for all the professional mistakes she made. How about malice and revenge? In the case of Dina Medina, a maid who could not repay a $1,000 loan that she received from her employer's father-in-law agreed to have sex with him to pay it off. Later, she tried to extort money from the father-in-law by impersonating the daughter-in-law and threatening to expose the sexual relationship between him and the maid. And when that failed, she lodged a police report on 2 separate occasions, alleging that the father-in-law had raped her and that he touched her body from behind without her consent. Now, when are you most vulnerable to a woman doing such a thing? My guess is when you have just caught her doing something wrong, like, for example, attempted extortion, impersonation, illegal confinement, whatever. At the point when you have just caught her doing wrong, her plans against you have just been foiled. That is the point when you are most vulnerable to dishonest women making false accusations of sex crimes against you. Another trigger for false accusations of sex crimes. The accusation is a threat, and the goal is coercion. So this is from the case of Wang Shu. Now, in this case, Wang Shu was caught importing illegal food products into Singapore. So when an officer from the Singapore Food Authority and 2 colleagues went to her office to interview her about the case, she agreed to give them an interview, and then after that she started becoming uncooperative and requested to end the interview. When his colleagues left the room to avoid further agitating Wang, the officer tried to calm her down on his own, but Wang refused to calm down, so he decided to end the interview. While he was packing his belongings, she asked him repeatedly to hand over the partially recorded statement, but he turned down her request. The accused then got up from her seat, stood in front of the room's door, which was the only exit. The accused closed the door and locked it, holding on to the doorknob. The accused then threatened the officer that if he refused to hand over the statement to her, she would shout molest. As a result of the threat, the officer gave the statement to Wang, who tore it up, and after that she opened the door to let him out. Notice how, first, this person, Wang Shu, used illegal confinement as part of her threat, as part of her attempt to intimidate and coerce the officer into handing over the partially recorded statement. Notice also she threatened a public servant with a false accusation. Please, she is already on record for importing illegal food products into Singapore. The Singapore Food Authority is aware of her. Did she think just threatening and silencing one officer from there is good enough? More would definitely be sent over this case. The very fact that such dishonesty, such coercive and threatening behavior was her first course of action suggests that she has done such things before to other people. It's just that she wasn't caught yet. So as you can see, the immediate triggers for false accusations of sex crimes are actually very common. These are not wild, weird, exotic reasons or triggers. These are very common. And yet not every woman who experiences those triggers resorts to false accusations of sex crimes, right? Whether a woman does so, it depends pretty much on her personality, her character, and her integrity. So when you look at the triggers for false molest accusations, those give you the when. Now we're looking at the who. I'm showing you signs of a woman who trends towards dishonesty. Now I'm going to be giving you many lists here. But my purpose is not to give you definitions so you can do a diagnosis on the next person you come across, but to help you recognize danger. My goal is not to make you see symptoms you can tick off a checklist. My goal is to make you see evidence that this is a person you should not associate with. One of the most useful resources I've ever seen comes from Mark McYoung. He is an expert in criminal behavior, criminal violence. And on his website, No Nonsense Self-Defense, he has this page, which is the profile of a rapist, stalker, abuser. And on that page, you will see someone rightly said, dishonest people are seldom dishonest in only one aspect of their lives. In the same vein, the predilections that can and do lead to rape and violence are not isolated. They tend to permeate a person's character and be regularly displayed in many small ways and in other areas. These attitudes, behaviors, and words are consistent among rapists and those who attack others. These include insensitivity for others, emphasis on self, belittling behavior or attitudes like, oh, he's just a musician, hostile, threatening language. If when a woman is angry with you, she says she's going to slap you, you can quite take it for certain that she will. She intends to. Bullying, intimidation to get their way, for example, illegal confinement, right? Excessive anger. Notice those symptoms I listed above are not exclusive to men. Women can display such signs also. A link to Mark McYoung's website is given at my blog, the lesson notes for this lesson. It's well worth you clicking over and reading it. Now, why do you need to know the signs, the red flags that indicate you're dealing with an abusive person? A common behavior from abusive people, whether sexually abusive, physically abusive, or abusive in other ways, such as, making false accusations and all that, right? A common behavior from such people is known as DARVO. And that means deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. It is a reaction that perpetrators of wrongdoing, such as sexual offenders, display in response to being held accountable for their behavior. As the acronym suggests, First, the abuser denies the abuse ever took place. When confronted with evidence, the abuser then attacks the person that was abused, or the person's family or their friends, for attempting to hold the abuser accountable for their actions. And finally, the abuser claims that they are actually the real victim in the situation, reversing the positions of victim and offender. So it's not just playing the victim, but also victim blaming. So what can Darvo look like in real life? From a sexually coercive male rebuffed, it can look like, why are you so unfriendly? Are you having PMS? I'm just trying to pay special attention to this. Many abusive people, especially those who are sexually coercive, they like to test your boundaries. They like to do stuff that makes you uncomfortable. And when you start to draw boundaries and say, no, that makes me uncomfortable, stop it. They'll say things like, oh, I was just joking. I was just trying to be friendly. With this, they are trying to make you feel guilt over enforcing your boundaries. This is very common, especially from sexually coercive people. All right? How about from a woman? For example, if you report a woman to the police because she committed illegal confinement on you, Darvo looks like a false molest accusation, right? And if you expose that woman for making false accusations of molest, what would Darvo look like? She could say, oh, I'm under great mental distress. I have insomnia. I have to attend counseling. Basically, she's claiming emotional damage and trying to paint you as the unreasonable, bullying, abusive bad guy. Of course, that by itself is wicked, but when an authority figure tries to intimidate, that's even worse. Here's an example of what it could look like. There was a case in which a lady, Ava, not her real name, was investigated for a data breach. You see, what happened was that she was a student of NUS, the National University of Singapore, and she found out that a man she had sex with, committed sexual acts with, actually videoed the sexual acts without her consent. And so she reported this to the NUS authorities. And somehow or other, news of this leaked out to the local media. So Ava was interrogated by a female investigator at the school about releasing private information to the media, a claim she denied. So of course, when Ava found out that there was going to be an investigation into her, she freaked out. She was interrogated by a female investigator, Kalaivani Kalimuthu, a former police officer who had earlier been convicted and jailed for forging statements to suggest that an alleged victim of molestation did not mind being touched, did not mind being molested. Now, according to Ava, she was verbally threatened and pressurized by the officer, and was also told there was a chance Ava herself would be charged with doxing and harassment. Kalaivani told me that she already knew everything and said that I should come clean, Ava said. She also told me that my perpetrator had been going through a lot after the case came to light in the media. Now, I'll be looking at this case again later on in lesson 5. But for now, I would like you to just take note. First, Ava was the victim of a sexual crime. She was filmed in sexual acts without her consent. That's a crime. That's just morally wrong. Now, she was the victim of a crime But yet, the investigator working for the National University of Singapore threatened that she would be charged with doxing and harassment. This investigator also put the perpetrator as the victim, saying, oh, he had been going through a lot after the case came to light in the media. As if Ava wasn't going through a lot when she found out that she was videoed in a sexual act without her consent. If you associate with people suffering from the following personality disorders, you are at greater risk of being falsely accused of sex crimes. Somebody with antisocial personality disorder may make false accusations out of malice to punish you. Somebody with borderline personality disorder may make false accusations on impulse. A woman with narcissistic personality disorder may make false accusations in order to make herself the heroine and the victim in her own personal fantasy world. As usual, there will be links on my blog in the lesson notes. All right, and there's a particular link I'd like you to look at. The link is narcissistic females use false allegations for power over men who cannot be controlled. Well worth a read. Now, a person with antisocial personality disorder may exploit, manipulate, or violate the rights of others, may lack concern, regret, or remorse over other people's distress, behave irresponsibly and show disregard for normal social behavior, be unable to control their anger, repeatedly break the law. Borderline personality disorders. They are emotionally unstable. They have disturbed patterns of thinking or perception. Impulsive behavior. Intense but unstable relationships with others. For example, one day, you're the best person in her life. The next day, you're the most useless. You're the one who has hurt her the most. That's an example of what it's like if you're associating with somebody with borderline personality disorders. Narcissistic personality disorder, they have an unreasonably high sense of self-importance and require constant, excessive admiration. They feel that they deserve privileges and special treatment. They make their achievements and talents seem bigger than they are. They may be preoccupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or the perfect mate. They believe they are superior to others and can only spend time or be understood by equally special people. More of this, again, through the links in the lesson notes. Remember, the point of showing you all this is not so you can diagnose a person and say, oh, that woman is more antisocial and narcissistic, but not borderline. That's not the purpose. The purpose is for you to see when a woman is too dangerous for you to associate with in the long run. If you see too many of these danger signs, make plans to leave, resign, get out of there. Of course, pathological liars. If you associate with pathological liars, you're at great risk of being falsely accused, right? Pathological liars, they lie indiscriminately about a wide range of topics. They tell untruths about minor events. They feel undeterred by the fear of getting caught. They experience a rush when they get away with lying, and they continue to lie even when confronted with the truth. They double down on their lies. Now, if you don't recall all the symptoms, all the signs, and all that I've listed, then at least where you are, look out for lies that make no sense. Okay? Look out for lies that do not benefit. the person speaking them, and lies that are easily exposed. Let me give you an example. This is what I call the ops guy story. So I know a guy who found a job doing operations in a small business. That section of the business is small. It's a secretary was a woman, the manager was a man, and the ops guy answering to the boss was a woman. Now, it was not a pleasant work environment. The boss would be pissed off with each of them in turn. And whenever the boss is pissed off with one of them, the other two would try to patch things up, work things out, and keep the business going. One day, when the boss was having problems with her secretary, she called the ops guy and told him that the secretary had accused both him and the manager of sexual harassment. Now, the boss instructed the ops guy to inform the manager of the accusation and warned both of them against interacting with the secretary at all. After the call, the boss and the ops guy continued to discuss this matter over WhatsApp. Then, at the end of that WhatsApp conversation, that text messages, the ops guy saw the text messages from the boss on this topic disappear right before his eyes. The boss was deleting all the text messages she sent him about the secretary's accusation of sexual harassment. So over the next couple of days, the boss met with the ops guy and the manager to discuss their possible contingency plans. One evening, the boss told the ops guy to confront the secretary about the accusations of sexual harassment. Of course, the ops guy did not want to do that. It's dangerous. But because the boss insisted, he did so. Guess what? The secretary denied making such accusations, and she even showed the ops guy proof that based on the details the boss gave him, the secretary could not possibly have made the accusations in the first place. So the poor confused ops guy texted the boss over WhatsApp to ask her if she kept the proof that the secretary actually made such accusations. And the boss just blew up at him over WhatsApp. She accused him of trying to damage her business by approaching the secretary in defiance of her instructions. The mildest thing the ops guy recalled the boss saying to him was that he was an idiot. And in moments, again, the WhatsApp messages that the boss sent to him began disappearing before his eyes. Again, she was deleting the WhatsApp messages she sent him on this topic. Again. This is an example of lies that make no sense. The boss did not benefit from lying about her secretary making an accusation of sexual harassment. Also, she told the ops guy to confront the secretary. Basically, it's as if she wanted her lies to be exposed. More telling, however, is how the boss deleted whatever WhatsApp messages she sent the ops guy on this topic. It shows that she does not want to take responsibility for her words. Such a person is inherently dishonest. So whether you get close to such a person for work, for business, or for personal reasons such as friendship or romance, either way, such a person is too dangerous to get close to. Another situation which is dangerous, having an affair with a married woman. If she can lie to her husband or other associates about you, you say, oh, he's just a friend. While you are actually having an affair with her, she can just as easily lie about you to other people, including the police. One common trick such people may use to win your confidence and get you to lower your guard around them is to just tell you something damaging about themselves. For example, she could claim that, oh, she used to do drink driving, but the one time she was stopped by the police at a roadblock, she just pretended to be on an important overseas work call. And the police just decided against making her take the breathalyzer test and just waved her to go past. But whatever she says, no matter how handsome she says you are, no matter how caring she says you are, no matter how good in bed she claims you are, don't expect her to be honest with you and about you should she ever be that pissed off with you. The first example that comes to mind is the case of Nurshafika Jasmine. This woman was, again, a policewoman. She was having an affair with her colleague. And when the colleague refused to divorce his wife and marry her, she made a false accusation of molest against him. A policewoman making a false molest accusation against a policeman. So when you find that you're in such a dangerous situation, what should you do? Your first priority should be get out of there. If you need to resign from your job, I think resigning is going to cause you less trouble than getting arrested and ending up under police investigation and paying thousands of dollars in legal fees. And if, let's say, you cannot get out of there, for example, let's say you're working in a tuition center and you want to finish teaching the kids and preparing them for the exams before you resign, if you choose to do that, then keep records. Keep records of both the bad and the good. Keep records of clashes with that particular woman, instances where she was dishonest. Keep even records of the good. Why? Let me give you an example. So this comes from a case I know of personally. If you look at the chat records here, you can see it's very warm. Somebody says, oh, I believe in you. And the reply is, thank you. You're the best. Sometimes. But you can see in this case that this chat record is of two people who are getting along pretty well, right? The woman is talking about how she has it difficult in work, and she even asked the guy to be with her in her work. Very wholesome, very warm. But within 3 weeks of this chat conversation, that woman accused that man of molesting her. And to prove his innocence, that man had to take out this chat record and show it to the police, or he would be arrested that very night. So, when I say keep records, where do you keep your records? Do you want to write a physical journal? If you look at me, you can see these are the physical journals I've been journaling in. I've been writing physical journals since, maybe 2007? That's a lot of journals. The problem with physical journals, however, is that it's very hard to timestamp them. It's very hard to show, oh, your entry for what? 10th of October 2020 was actually written on 10th of October 2020, for example. It's very hard to timestamp those. If you are keeping records of Telegram chats with somebody, bear in mind that it is possible for that person to delete the entire chat from her own side. And that's it, you have no records already. If you're trying to keep records of Instagram chats, I've had experiences of entire Instagram chats being deleted. All right, if somebody blocks me and then later unblocks, I've had instances in which all my chat records with that particular account were just totally deleted, could not be recovered. You could send WhatsApp messages to yourself. Those are definitely timestamped. You could post on Facebook, but your privacy settings, you put it to self only. Those will also be timestamped. Screenshots, those are very useful. You can tell I believe in screenshots. Grab ride receipts, whether it's Grab, Gojek, Tada, or whatever ride app receipts you have. Those are very useful for proving you were someplace at a particular day and time. You do not know if that will ever come in useful, because you must remember one thing. In Singapore, we have no statute of limitations when it comes to sex crimes. A woman can accuse you of a sex crime, 3, 4, 5 years later, after the incident was supposed to have happened. And 3, 4, 5 years later, how would you have records? How could you even remember where you were when? Right? So keeping such receipts could turn out to be useful if you're associating with such a woman. And of course, while you're keeping records, it helps you get into the lifestyle of reflection and awareness. You have to think through, did something happen today which makes me feel unsafe? Did something happen today that makes me feel suspicious? And when you start thinking through all this and start being aware of all this, it becomes harder for a person to successfully target you for false accusations of sex crimes. But before we move into that, again, let me say that if you find these lessons useful, please share. Share with your friends, with your relatives, with your associates. Please share. All right, help me get the word out. As I said, all this information is provided free of charge. I just want to help as many people as possible. Okay, so with that said, we're done with this lesson. Let's move on to lesson 3. I'll see you there.